Hey y'all, my name's Priscilla and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the best of books that I read this year. I've been seeing a lot of tags about the best of, best 5, best 17 of 2017, and I kind of want to just contribute to that. Not all of these books were necessarily published this year, but they were books that I definitely did enjoy and read this year, and they're also not in any particular order. The most recent book that I read that was one of my favorites was Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Sáenz. And this is a recent book that I read this month actually for the Holiday Adventure-a-thon. This is about a Mexican boy named Aristotle, who becomes really close friends with Dante, another Mexican boy in El Paso, Texas. And their friendship is so genuine and it really envelops into a romance. And this is really just a cutesy YA novel that really gripped me and that I really enjoyed reading. I've heard a lot about this and it really didn't disappoint at all. I particularly related to Adi's story in this, and Adi is a very troubled, very moody, and very battling a lot of things that are going on inside him he's not understanding as a teenage boy. And that is something that I really related to, not being able to express the anger and the resentment that he has for these conflicting feelings that he has. And it's such a beautifully written story that I would recommend to read for anyone that's in the mood for like a cutesy romance YA novel. And I really love the cover too. Like, this really speaks to me too, so I really enjoyed this. Next I have An Untamed State by Roxane Gay, and this is one of my favorite authors. Roxane Gay's I think only fiction novel. She's very well known for writing short essay collections that are nonfiction, and they're kind of like takes on culture and her view of the world and her experiences as a scholar, a black woman, a feminist, a queer woman. And in this story we have a Haitian woman named Muriel who is American but has her parents living in Haiti, and she goes and visits her family who is actually very rich, and she is kidnapped and held for ransom until her father can pay this ransom. And she is essentially held as a sex slave in a cage for weeks on end. And this story I think doesn't get a lot of attention because Roxane Gay is most known for her nonfiction works, but this is a story that was kind of slow to build but that really engaged me, and that was pretty much a page turner that kept me up at night wanting to read more. And in this story we have the before and after, which is before Muriel was held captive, and then the after, when she has experienced lots of sexual assault, lots of rape, and lots of other graphic, violent things that are done to her mentally, physically, spiritually. She is broken. And it pretty much tells the story of how she is a strong and obedient person to her parents, to her husband. She's very opinionated and difficult, and to these men that capture her, she's pretty much a piece of flesh. And how she grips with the after, and how she's still very much a broken woman. These aren't spoilers, by the way. This is kind of all told in the synopsis and in the blurb, but how she's very much a broken person, and how she not heals but kind of comes to terms that this is her life and that this is who she is from now on. I really loved this. I think that's kind of strange to say about a story that has such very tough topics and that has trigger warnings for all sorts of sexual assault. But I love Roxane Gay's writing, and I think that this is a great fiction alternative if you're not into nonfiction to be introduced to Roxane Gay's writing. This year I also read A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, and this is, I believe, a YA novel about a young boy who the name is escaping me at the moment, but he is being haunted by a monster who is actually a yew tree from his yard, who comes to him at night and tells him that he will be haunting him and telling him 3 stories, and at the end the boy will tell him his own story and his own truth. And this is a story that is pretty much about this young boy dealing with his mother who has cancer and who is dying, and who he has to accept her death. And it's such a beautifully written story. It's something that I think can strike a chord in anyone, and I loved it. There's illustrations in the story that I also very much loved. They're illustrated by Jim Kay, who is also the illustrator of the Harry Potter illustrated versions. But it's just a really great, emotional, and very tear-jerking story of acceptance and mourning and grief and anger and all these things that kind of come with death and with the child having to encounter the possibility of his mother passing. An audiobook that I listened to that I really loved this year was Beauty Queens by Libba Bray. And this is a YA novel about a bunch of beauty queens, of teen pageant girls that have crash landed on a mysterious island and that have to band together to survive. And this is a kind of book that I would typically not gravitate towards, pretty much because of the cover. This is a cover that I hate, but I don't think that it very much captures what the heart of the story is. This is a story that is very ridiculous. It's very much a satire, and it's a story that has a very diverse cast of characters and that encounters and discusses a lot of important topics. That discusses a lot of important topics like racism, gender identity, disability, albinism. There's queerness, and there's lots of girl power-ness in this story that I really loved, and I would really recommend the audiobook because there is such a great narrator. I think Libba Bray narrates it, and she does so many different voices, and there's a lot of like little footnotes, like commercial breaks that are included in the story that really made me laugh. And it's actually a very funny book. I really don't read books that make me laugh, and this book made me laugh and giggle and snark, and it was really a great snarky and comedic satire kind of story. So I really loved that one too. So I'd really recommend it if you're in the mood for like a crazy, ridiculous girl power satire. Last but not least was probably my most favorite read this year, and this is kind of cheating because it's a series, but I read the Earthseed series by Octavia Butler, which is a duology. Book 1 is The Parable of the Sower, and book 2 is Parable of the Talents. And Octavia Butler is one of my favorite authors. And this series is a dystopian series that follows our main character, Lauren Alamina, who is the daughter of a minister and who lives with her family in a safe haven community that is protected from the outside world, which is very much ravaged and devastated from World War III, from water food shortages, from a corrupt police and government. And she lives in this community with her family, and she also has these hyper empathy abilities that she describes as sharing, and that she can share the pleasure, the pain, the feelings of the people and animals around her. So in this story, that means that she very much often feels pain, and it's really not a useful ability to have in a world like this. And the reason I really love this book, well, one of the many reasons I love this book was there's a lot of religion in this book, which I'm not very religious, but the way that Octavia Butler is able to take this idea of religion and being able to show the impact it can have, that it can go one way where it's used as a tool to intimidate or to enslave people. And it's also in another way used as a belief system, the Earthseed belief system that Lauren cultivates. It's a belief system that can inspire and that can really push people to reach for the stars. And that idea and the way she writes this story is so beautiful and poignant. And this story is told with a series of journal entries from Lauren, and each journal entry has a verse from the Earthseed book that she has written, which is sort of like a Bible. Octavia Butler was able to notice and observe trends that were happening in the world and kind of capitalize it and imagine this world in this near future world in the 2020s and 2030s, and she really understands the human psyche and people's motivations. And I will say that there are trigger warnings for this book as well, lots of sexual assault and rape of adults and children. And in this world, there's also a lot of slavery and descriptions of slavery and graphic violence and things like that. So be warned for that. I really think that it's a very relevant book. And one thing that I'm really sad about is that Octavia Butler passed. And I don't know if she meant this book to be a trilogy, but most of her series are trilogies. So I can't imagine where this book could have gone, and I really would have liked to read that if that was something that she had planned. But if anybody knows that, I would really be interested about that. But highly recommend this series. It's one that's really, really gonna stick with me for a long time. I also have an honorable mention that I wanted to mention. I really enjoyed this year. I read both of the current releases for the Ember and the Ashes series. I think it's the Ember and Ashes and then A Torch Against the Night. And these stories are by Sabaa Tahir, and it's about mostly our main characters, Leia and Elias, that are in a Roman Empire-esque kind of fantasy world where children are raised at an academy to be soldiers. Elias is a soldier, and Leia is a slave. And Leia is trying to find a way to break her brother out of prison, and Elias wants to be free from this world, so they kind of band together. And this is a YA story that I really loved. It's really fast-paced, there's lots of action, and there's also a lot of really important themes in here that I really enjoyed as well. Because it is an honorable mention, I don't want to like go on about this too much, but there was a controversy, I think, that came out with the covers being changed, and Sabaa Tahir took a lot of heat because she changed the covers of the next books that are coming out, which I think is ridiculous, because I think it's so important that brown girls are represented on covers and that brown girls see themselves on covers. So I don't care what you say. If you have the first book and it's another version and you don't want to buy the next books, like, this is a really much more important and much bigger than you. I look forward to getting the next books in these series. I think on Goodreads it says it's a quartet, so I think there's at least 2 more to come. So I'm really excited to get to those hopefully next year. And those were my favorites this year. This was kind of a very impromptu, very last minute video that I decided to film. I've had the flu this past week, so that's why I kind of sound kind of nasally and disgusting. But I really wanted to film this before the end of the year and get this out there before 2018. And I really hope that you enjoyed watching and hearing me rant and gush about some of my favorite reads this year. I hope that you have a great remainder of 2017 and that you loved some of these books, or that maybe you'll pick up some of my favorite books. If you've read any of these, I'd like to know what you thought about them. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.